course, Dusty was not the only coach to have be on the last year of his deal in this town.
I don't think, I don't think Buck's coming back either. I think Buck's gonna walk.
How about this for a scenario? Rizzo's got 1 year left on his deal. Mike Rizzo, new general manager and team president of the Baltimore Orioles in 2018.
Isn't Dan Duquette?
They're both Duquette and Showalter's on the last year of their deals.
All right, we're gonna go live. We're gonna go live.
How about that for a I gotcha learner family?
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. And we are here on the WBGR Sports Network, where you can also watch on Facebook Live at the TXHT Facebook page. And also don't forget, you can join the TXHT Patreon community at patreon.com/TXHT_hockey. We just put up our third Patreon exclusive episode the other day, featuring Zach Scheider from Fulltilt New York Rangers blog. A little later today, we'll be having our good friend Russell from Fulltilt on to talk about the 1-5-1 New York Rangers, who will be playing today at 12:30 against the Nashville Predators. So we'll be getting Russell's thoughts on what's wrong with the New York Rangers a little bit later on.
Yeah, the NHL is definitely you got a lot of surprises 2 weeks in. You have a lot of surprises for the wrong reasons 2 weeks in. Definitely interesting to see that. I mean, as we're flow into our Washington Capitals talk for the week, you got to think about this, Mike. They're two really good periods away from being right there with Montreal and the Rangers at 1-5-1. You take out the third period against Ottawa and the first period against Montreal, but at the same time, they're a bounce here and a bounce there away from being right up there at 6-1 or 6-2. So I mean, that little piece of vulcanized rubber is definitely playing games early on in the season. So
well, I mean, when we were on the air last week, we were on air before the Caps Flyers game, which
goodness.
was brutal. Let me put it like this: I've made it no private matter where I've been DVRing most of the games and watching them at like midnight to 2 in the morning, so I can watch the games because I've had to work. But I will admit that for that game, I turned it off once it became 5-2. Because you could just see that it was just like it was like the scrimmage game that I was playing in before my actual game last Sunday. And that's just how bad it was, because when we played in that scrimmage, we were yelling at each other, "Hey, you're running too much. You're running too much. Stop exerting so much energy." But the problem is that when the Caps did it for real, it didn't look good, especially for a team that needed those 2 points.
Well, a lot of people asked me about this throughout the week, and I pretty much put that Philadelphia game as the perfect storm against the Washington Capitals. You had a back-to-back division game night. You had 3 division games in 4 nights. Both those back-to-backs were on the road, and you're playing a team who had 3 days off coming off a West Coast trip, playing their home opener. And we've seen in the past with the Capitals on their home openers, they've beaten teams pretty badly. They beat Montreal 6-1 this offseason. But you also have, I remember when Jaromir Jagr came to the Capitals, first game he played with the Caps, they boat raced Martin Brodeur to the bench after 2 periods. I mean, there's a vibe about opening night, and if the home team starts putting things together and gets up 2-0, 2-1, or it was 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, that place just becomes a hornet's nest. And the Caps had little glimpses. You had the goal tied at 1, and then Backstrom's goal it made it 4-2. It was an outlet by Orpik with a nice little deflection in around center ice by Oshie, deflected right to Backstrom, who buried it by Brian Elliott, but they couldn't sustain that. And with that being said, you weren't going to put Braden Holtby in because he played last night. Philip Grubauer. That's one of the ugly truths about being a backup goaltender in the NHL. When it goes bad, just ask Al Montoya last year in Columbus when Montreal lost 10-1. It goes bad, and you're the backup. You have to take the bullet.
Yeah, but the good thing is that one, that was Madison Bowey's NHL debut. He made mistakes. I saw that where Jacob Voracek just made him look silly and almost undressed him completely all over the ice. I mean, he's just lucky he lost his stick and not his gloves, his helmet, his shoulder pads, and everything else. But after that play, but the good thing is that one, I like how he responded to it. He took it and said, "Hey, it just shows I still have a lot to learn to play in this league," and that is a great way to segue into the next game, which is against Toronto. Which, yes, the Washington Capitals lost 2-0, but this was a much better game for the Washington Capitals, both defensively and I would say offensively. Even though they didn't score any goals, this was still a better game for the Washington Capitals as a team.
Well, they wanted to concentrate on keeping the puck out of the net, obviously, after they got the snowman treatment in Philly on that Saturday night. And you mentioned Madison Bowey, and he played a much better game. I think now being paired a lot more with Brooks Orpik, like we thought the pairs would shake out once they got a practice or two in. They got a team building.
I can't remember if we go back to the summer when we were talking about this stuff. Didn't we say it was going to be Christian Hughes with John Carlson and Madison Bowey with Brooks Orpik?
I believe that was what we had penciled in until we realized we didn't have enough room to keep Madison Bowey on the team in the salary cap. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I know a lot of coaches like the righty-lefty thing with the defenseman, and it has its advantages. And Bowey, I mean, you had a whirlwind thing. He gets called up after the Niskanen injury, and he getting his dad 2,600 miles to see his first NHL game in a few short hours. You got a lot on your plate, not just, oh, by the way, I got to get from Hershey to Philadelphia for my first NHL game. And you see glimpses of what the Caps see in Madison Bowey. He calms the game down. He makes good decisions. He jumps into play, and in time he could be the heir apparent to John Carlson. And you see, what Carlson's doing. I mean, he's logging so much ice time, and you see what you see in John Carlson every year at this time of year. A lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, a lot of forced passes, and a lot of not being in the right position. And it drives me insane. And this guy's going to be an unrestricted free agent next year, and he's probably going to be the best defenseman on the market. So it's, Carlson's got a world of talent. He's a tremendous player, one of the better defensemen in the league. But there's times where he just makes you go batty. And that's an understatement.
But I mean, we're definitely seeing good strides out of Hughes and Bowey. I like the fact that we're playing Chorney with Orlov. I like that. I definitely thought that Chorney should be getting more opportunity this year. Obviously, not the same with Madison Bowey, but not at the expense of a Matt Niskanen injury, who we really need in the lineup. And it kind of showed, especially in that game against Philly. We could have used a Matt Niskanen in the lineup against Philly.
Well, even with a Matt Niskanen in Philly, I mean, mistakes, the forwards played awful that night. There were so many turnovers by the forwards, and there's one thing creeping in. Even last night in the Detroit game, they have a propensity to throw this cross-ice pass around the blue line. You're just begging for 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s and breakaways to happen, and you've seen it all across the league in the NHL. I mean, you see plenty of turnovers because forwards are trying to force passes that aren't there. And this league is getting faster and faster and more intelligent. These young players are very intelligent right off of the hop. So, I mean, it's very interesting what's coming down with the forwards have got to play better. It's a 5-man game out there. I mean, we always put the onus on the defensemen and the goaltenders, but those forwards have to not only put the puck in the net, obviously, but they also have to make sure they take care of the puck, and they were brutal at taking care of the puck against Philly, much better against Toronto. And you got to think about this, Mike. Toronto's averaging 4.86 goals a game. That's juggernaut for this era. Their 4 regulation wins, they've scored 6, 6, 7, and 8. 2 overtime wins, they've scored at least 4. They only scored technically 1 goal in that game against the
second
Capitals.
goal is an empty netter.
Yeah, I wish Ovi would have given Kadri a little bit more of a slash to the arm after the near crippling
but one thing,
clipping incident of last spring.
But one thing definitely that I noticed a lot, and I was looking at it in my notes, I got the Detroit notes in front of me now. Thank you, Dixon. Because he wrote them for me. But the one key note that I wrote about the Caps, and I kind of singled at Evgeny Kuznetsov on this, is that you got to shoot more.
Oh,
there have been way too many times, like, that could have easily been a 3-1 win for the Capitals if Kuznetsov shot it at the top of the circles instead of just go, oh, I'm going to pass. I mean, I get Kuznetsov is a great playmaker, but he's got a sneaky shot too. And you know, it's like you can't give up those opportunities.
When you're coming down the slot and there's no defenseman there, shoot the puck, because we're trying to tell people you got to crash the net in this league. I mean, Burakovsky's goal last night, Nicholas Backstrom actually was in front of the goalie. There's a novel concept. The power play drives me nuts because no one wants to get in front of the goaltender. Everyone wants to be the side of goalie trying to deflect a John Carlson shot. You know, John Carlson's puck usually goes by the goaltender if someone actually puts their butt in front of the goaltender's face. A lot easier. And what we've talked about countlessly about maybe putting Orlov on that first unit, but even if you have Carlson on the first unit, if you're the guy down low and that guy behind the goal line, that's another one. I mean, if it's out near the point, that guy down the goal line was Backstrom or Kuznetsov back in the day, Johansson or Grabowski, whoever's been down there, needs to be in front of the net.
Well,
they're not going to do anything.
That's kind of why I've said let's put Tom Wilson on the power play unit, because that way, put Tom Wilson in front of the net, put Oshie in that slot area, kind of reconfigure your power play a little bit. Maybe make Tom Wilson, occasionally go behind the net to take the puck and then move it to Ovechkin or Backstrom, but then go right back to the front of the net to create that net presence, because when he does that, a lot of guys are going to be going after Tom Wilson in front of the net if he's standing in front of the net on the power play.
Absolutely. And even last night, I was watching a lot of highlights from last night's game. Sidney Crosby was down on that goal line area, but he siphoned himself into the front, which allowed Malkin to have more ice on that top side of the power play. If Backstrom does the same thing, like cut in front of the net, that also, as we saw with the game-winning goal from a different aspect of the power play last night, you forget about guys on the weak side if you start getting locked in on the puck. And a guy like Evgeny Kuznetsov with his playmaking ability, you're going to get people tantalized with your playmaking, and especially if Nicholas Backstrom clears out and gives Kuznetsov practically that whole half of the ice to work his magic.
Yeah. And then going into the game last night against Detroit, the Capitals won 4-3 in overtime. Couple notes real quick before we go to the break. Number one, horrible penalty killing by the Capitals in the second period, allowing Darren Helm to bad pass by Ovi when he probably should have shot it, giving it right to Darren Helm, who would score on the breakaway shorthanded. But then Andrei Burakovsky would score his first of the season, assisted by Dmitry Orlov and Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson was the one who really started to get that play in motion to get Andrei Burakovsky a goal. So Tom Wilson getting a point while playing top 6 minutes.
A great play by Orlov at the blue line, keeping it in. Hey, Robbie Gross, Sports on the Hill podcast. Thank you for having me on last week. It was a great time talking about the previous week, and great show you guys got over there. Keep up the work every Monday night. They're on talking Redskins, Caps, and everything. But with Tom Wilson and Orlov, getting Burakovsky and Backstrom just getting in front of the net sometimes the best assist is the one that's not on the score sheet. And with the helm play, I mean, on the power play, it was another one of those cross ice passes we just were mentioning of Ovechkin trying to force one across the seam. Sometimes you don't have that seam pass. You got to make the simple pass, or even wrap it around the boards to the guy behind the net. I mean, you got to move without the puck. When this power play's humming, people are moving. When this power play is stagnant for stretches, everyone's just standing around. You saw that when we get to the third period, that 6-on-4, it was like a night and day situation, which eventually led to the tie goal.
Yeah, and then of course in the third period, you had Jay Beagle scoring shorthanded, assisted by Alex Txht. A great play by Txht to break up the pass and then getting it right to Jay Beagle.
You're telling me there was an Alex Txht sighting? Yes, there was. And like you said, a great diving play by Txht.
Yeah. And then, but shortly after, Tomas Tatar would tie the game at 2. That was a beautiful, I'll say it again, beautiful tip. Like, from a horrible angle to tip it and get it top corner over the glove. That's beautiful, and you got to give props to Tomas Tatar for that. And then a little later, Tatar would score his second of the game, and then TJ Oshie would score on the power play to tie the game with 1 minute 1 second left in regulation. And then in overtime, Trevor Daley would take a 2-minute minor for tripping, which then Alex Ovechkin, I did wake up for this goal because I fell asleep for the last 2 goals of the period. It's what happens when you watch at midnight to 2 in the morning, trying to catch up on everything. Alex Ovechkin with a nice snipe to the top corner over Mrazek's glove. Really good goal, assisted by Backstrom and Carlson.
I think Peter Mrazek's going to see Ovechkin in his nightmares.
He almost tried to kill him.
He had 3 slap shots. That one tried to take his head off, one tried to take his leg off, and the other one hit the back of the net to win the game. But the thing was, Mrazek played great. Both the Tatar goals were things of beauty. I mean, the turnover again, but you got to give tip. I mean, the tip by Tatar. More teams don't take advantage of that goaltender coming side to side, and that's about as good as you could place it. And then especially with the overtime. I mean, with the goal that tied the game, Caps actually got a huge break because the first part of that 6-on-4. It was 3 guys just standing around the net waiting to see what Kuznetsov and Carlson were going to do, playing patty cake at the blue line. It got cleared, and then Ovechkin, with a terrible turnover coming out from behind the net, and Darren Helm just shot the puck wide, or it would have been 4-2 Red Wings at that point. But they got themselves composed. There was, I think, a camera lens or a piece of glass broke, so they had to clean that up. So the Caps actually got an unofficial timeout to set the play up again. And they got cleared, but they came back down on the rush and bang, 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 right in the back of net by TJ Oshie, which actually, and the bigger benefit was they were actually able to call their timeout to set up the 4-on-3. And the 4-on-3, a thing of beauty, like a 3-person weave. Carlson, Ovechkin moving to the center and then moving around, and Nicholas Backstrom just got everyone just mesmerized. And Ovechkin just, you don't lose the guy that hit 10 goals before anyone else in the league. You must know where he's at. And you have 3 Detroit Red Wings on the top half of that ice, and little number 8 sitting here thinking, game over.
And when Ovi did that, he made a little history, but we're going to save that for news and notes for our third segment, because coming up next, after our break, we're going to have Russell from Full Tilt New York Rangers to talk about what's wrong with the Rangers. So with that, we'll be back after the break.
Looking for some pre-Thanksgiving fun? Then
Yeah,
look
we
no
just
further
do.
than to DerbyCon. DerbyCon is taking
whole hour
place
on that one.
Regency North in Norristown, New Jersey,
I technically
from November
did.
17th to 19th.
Five,
Come
six,
see special
point,
guests
right?
like David Yost, Walter Jones,
4.
Havercorn, and so many more. For more information and to purchase tickets, visit DerbyCon.com today.
Hey guys.
Russell.
Hey, Russell, we just aired the first commercial. We're about to do the second commercial.
Yeah, I'm watching. I like the show so far today.
Yeah, we love you too.
Oh, Thank you, Mike.
Get up early today for your matinee delight there, your afternoon delight.
Oh, just to let you know, we're going to announce the DerpyCon stuff this segment.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, and I would not be up this early if it wasn't for you guys because I work an overnight tonight and an overnight tomorrow at the studio. So.
Oof. All right.
Yeah.
Is Luffman and them running you ragged already?
All right, playback,
Yeah,
playback music.
I don't know what happened, but like basically they were like, "Hey, you're gonna be our new overnight guy," and I was like, "I am," and they were like, "Yep," and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm the overnight
Hey,
guy."
Russ, hold on a sec, bud.
Oh, no problem.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for the serious hockey fan. And we also want to thank Robbie Gross again. Love the show today, guys. Thank you. And stay tuned, Robbie, because we're going to be talking Rangers in a second, but we will be talking more Caps in a little bit. We just don't like talking about the Caps. We love talking about hockey in general. We want to help grow the game in this area and educate, and one of the best ways is by bringing on our guest, Russell Hartman from Fulltilt New York Rangers blog. Russell, welcome back on, buddy.
Always glad to be on the show. How you guys doing?
Doing well, and I guess you got a little extra early alarm clock since your Blue Shirts are going to be hosting the old afternoon delight at the Garden today, hosting the defending Western Conference champion Nashville Predators. So what's going on up there? I mean, that's almost as broad a question as I can ask right now. I mean, 1-5-2 out of the gates, and what is not going right up there in the city that never sleeps?
Yeah, we've been. This is basically all we've been talking about on the blog recently, and in our podcast this week, and then next week we were talking with Craig Custance about it too. And it's just, it's not something we all saw coming, but like based on the defense, I thought the defense would be able to cover some of the losses that we've had up front. You know, you would think that Henrik Lundqvist would be his normal self, but it's a combination of. I feel like new people. It's added into the fact that our center depth got completely ravaged during the summer. The fact that Elias Andersson and Phil Petel are not on the roster right now. And the loss of Derek Stepan seems to have hurt this team a lot more than a lot of people thought. And also, a lot of people didn't like Dan Girardi towards the end of his tenure here, but it seems like his loss on defense is really affecting some of the guys on the team. And one of my biggest, I guess, a microcosm of the Rangers season so far was when they were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins the other day, and they were leading the game 4-3 with about a minute left. Sidney Crosby baited Kevin Shattenkirk to touch the puck because he knew it was a hand pass. Once Kevin Shattenkirk touched the puck, Crosby could freely touch the puck, and he did, and he scored on Henrik Lundqvist from a terrible angle with less than a minute left. And then Ryan McDonough made one of the worst defensive plays I have ever seen someone make in overtime, basically gifting the puck to Bill Kessel, who was waiting in front of the net, who slid it to Malkin, and the Penguins won the game.
He gave the puck to Kessel like giving Kessel a hot dog.
No, he just gave it to him, and it was.
You did not catch the joke, but.
I know everyone likes to say Phil Kessel loves the burgers and everything. I see all those jokes on Twitter, but it's just things like that. Their heads don't seem to be like in it. And, we've been talking about it on the blog more about how maybe the coach has kind of lost the room there, and, is he not making the right lineup decisions as well? And that all factors into this, honestly, terrible start where they're almost at the bottom of the league with the Coyotes. And, it's bad when possibly one of your most offensively talented players is playing fourth-line minutes, and Pavel Buchnevich, and you have players like Philip Hegel and Elias Andersson who were barely given a chance during the regular look. Elias Andersson was sent back to Frölunda. He wasn't even given the 9-game chance in the beginning of the season. And Philip Hegel was kind of riding the bench after game one, and he was never given a solid chance to produce. And with rookies like that, and with rookies that you spent such high picks on, they should at least be given a 9-game chance to see what you can do before you decide to send them back down or back to their home country.
Now, on this past week's Patreon exclusive episode, I had your fellow contributor, Zach Scheiger, on, and we were talking about the Rangers. And when we did the interview, it was actually the day before the Rangers-Islanders game. And you and I, we've discussed this. You obviously work overnights doing what you do. I work nights doing the live event operator gig that I do. And I got to work that Islanders-Rangers game, and watching it, I noticed that, a lot of the things that you were mentioning, but also one question I asked Zach about is about pending unrestricted free agent Rick Nash. And he mentioned, Rick Nash is getting lots of great opportunities. He's just not getting it in the net. Money is obviously going to be a factor depending on if you guys re-sign him or not at the end of the season. But when I was watching that Islanders game, Rick Nash was getting a lot of great opportunities, but he wasn't really shooting the puck. There were instances where he had breakaways where he should have shot the moment he hit the top of the slot area, because it would have been a goal. And even Steve Valiquette, who does the MSG intermission stuff for the Rangers, even kind of called out Rick Nash and a few others on, you need to shoot more, especially when you have those opportunities. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, shout out to Steve Valiquette. I love the work the guy does as an analyst, and he's really great, like what he does between the periods and for overtime. So he's been fantastic over there on MSG. But Rick Nash, look, he's turned into a much different player ever since he arrived in New York. He is not the goal scorer, not the dominant force he was in Columbus, but he changed his game to be more of a complete two-way player. Now, that's fine, but, like you said, he's getting all these chances, he's getting these breakaways, he's doing all of these things, but he's not finishing. He gets to the net, and it's like he's not shooting the puck, and, that's getting to be a real problem when we're paying someone $7.8 million a year, and they haven't scored yet. And it's so evident from his game right now that something's not quite there, and he's getting all these chances. And you can get all the chances you want in the world, but when the Rangers are having a start like this, you need your big guys to step up, and he's not scoring the puck. Simple as that. It's not good. And
he's stepping up, but not scoring.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of unrestricted free agent status, Rick Nash is gone. Rick Nash will not be a Ranger next year. They have money to allocate in other places, in terms of JT Miller and Kevin Hayes, who are going to need new contracts, and Brady Shea is going to need a new contract soon. And I don't think Rick Nash is going to be on Broadway past this season. And I think there's also a possibility he could get traded at the deadline for the right price. I think the Rangers might have to retain some salary in that situation, but there is no way in my mind that Rick Nash is here next year.
Nash was in that elite scorer category when they were talking about him in Columbus, and the Stamkos and Ovechkin category. And like you mentioned, you go to the Rangers and you're trying to play more of a two-way game. They talked the same thing. Alex Ovechkin played more of a two-way game, but the thing is you don't want to limit the player's offensive abilities. You just be defensively responsible. Just don't do anything stupid. You don't have to completely commit to the defensive game. Just don't do anything that's going to put your team in a completely different hole. And speaking of holes, I'll take this one right from ESPN. They talked about your center position as being tasty on your team as being tasty on the outside, but not much in the middle, like a donut. So I don't know where to go with on that one. But you talk about Derek Stepan. They were kind of in a bind with the no trade clause that was going to kick in July. So, but at 27 years old, 27-year-old top six centers don't grow on trees. But like you mentioned, there's a bigger issue with the starts that your team had, and you mentioned the Islander game. Lundqvist makes those two great saves, or you guys don't get a point out of that one in the last 5 seconds of that regulation. But what do you attribute to the slow starts? They've given up the first goal 5 times in the first 6 minutes of the game, and 4 of those are in the first 3 minutes of the game, and they've lost all those games. Where's the disconnect? Because I'm looking at your stats. VC has nothing. Nash has 1 goal, Shea only has 1 goal, and Zuccarello and Zibanejad, even though Zibanejad has 5 goals, they're combined to -16. That's not very good 8 games into a season.
No, it's not. And, it's a big thing with focus. And if they're not coming into this game with the mindset of every game of next man up and we have to do this and we have to rally around each other, this is going to continue. This isn't going to stop. And, this homestand, I was talking with my co-host on the podcast, Michael Kaplan, about this, how if they end up going something like 1-9 or 1-8-1 or something like this, like, heads are going to start rolling in that organization pretty soon because, this is not a low market team. This is the New York Rangers, and if they're like this and they're starting like this with the roster and the money they've put into certain players, I'm sure management is not going to be too happy. Like, it's not as if we didn't spend money this summer. We signed Kevin Shattenkirk, we re-signed Brendan Smith. As little money as it was, we signed David Desharnais. These kinds of players we brought in to complement the team, not to bring them down. And I think they underestimated the loss of Derek Stepan because, number one, Derek Stepan might not have been the best goal scorer, best point producer for the team, but the guy's two-way game and his defensive play was extremely solid. Now, for a player like Derek Stepan, fine. But a player, and then so it goes back to Rick Nash. For the money we're paying someone like that, he should be putting the puck in the net. And I understand why Derek Stepan had to be traded. Like you mentioned, Bernie, the no-trade clause. And, if he got past July 1 here, that would have kicked in. And also when they needed the money and they needed the cap space to do some re-signing and signing other players. But ultimately, I think it's just a lack of focus, and it's a lack of them. Something is not right with them in the locker room, and they're not, they don't have their heads in it. And the biggest thing is, I remember seeing after the loss to Pittsburgh when I was watching the post game, Ryan McDonough and Henrik Lundqvist just look defeated. They look like they're kind of blah, and it's really bothersome to see your two leaders of your team to just look empty.
2 points. One, in that Islander game the other night, the Islanders let the Rangers get back into it with all the countless errors that they made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's number one. They let the Rangers get back into that game. If they had played a tight defensive game, that game would have never gone to overtime. Yeah. But my second note is that we've heard, obviously you've talked about, Alain Vigneault on the hot seat. Obviously now at this point he's definitely on the hot seat. What about general manager Jeff Gordon? How much onus does he have to take to make this team better? And could he potentially be out of the job, especially if this continues for the entirety of this season?
So, Mike, that is a fantastic question. And we just posted an article on this. Actually, my co-host Michael Kaplan wrote it about how the blame needs to start shifting around to Jeff Gordon, even though people have just been blaming Alain Vigneault for everything. And he brings up a good point. Jeff Gordon, he's been really good with the signings. He's gotten guys a lot cheaper than we thought. He's gotten guys under really good deals. But his biggest fault so far has been his trades. And we haven't exactly done well in the draft either. And you need to hit on some of your draft picks. I'm not even saying all of them. Some of them need to be hits. Well, when you look at the Rangers draft for the past 3 years, 4 years, we have not had a lot of hits. And that is really something that's hurting this organization right now because we don't have people that can plug these holes in our lineup. As I said before, Elias Anderson is not here right now. He's not even in the AHL. He's back in Sweden. And for those who don't know, Elias Anderson was the Rangers' seventh overall first-round pick this year. And Philip Hedl is in the AHL, and he wasn't, I feel, given a fair shake. And that's how a lot of people feel also. If you spend these two picks, especially on the center ice position, in a position that you need, and you know your team is weakened, they both should have been given every opportunity possible and every inch of those 9 games to prove what they can do before being sent away. And, it's not just that. There needs to be more hits on these picks in the organization. Ryan Gropp was supposed to be on the team by now, and he's not. And he's fringe AHL player right now, which is not good when you spend such a high pick on someone like that.
Dylan McElrath.
Yeah, you can go all the way back to 2003 with the Rangers scouting when they picked Hugh Jessamine in the first round over Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Zach Parise, and Shea Weber. You can go to 2006 when Claude Giroux was available and they thought Bobby Sanguinetti was a better pick, and no one knows who that name is except for Carolina Hurricanes fans maybe. And then you even go to 2010, as you just said, Mike, Dylan McElrath was picked, and then Cam Fowler and Vladimir Tarasenko followed right after that. They've had every opportunity to draft a kind of game-breaking type player, and they've whiffed on almost every opportunity. And that's going to come back and kill you, especially when teams like Toronto have 3 of them in, Matthews, Nylander, and Marner. the Caps still have Ovechkin and Backstrom, and now with Oshie Kuznetsov.
And Wilson getting top 6 and Burakovsky getting in top 6 finally.
I knew you had to get Tom Wilson in there somewhere. And with Pittsburgh, having Crosby and Malkin, and Tampa having this scoring legend at Kucherov right now, and Stamkos being healthy, how are the Rangers expected to keep up when they don't have a forward that's or any type of dynamic player that's close to any of those guys?
Well, would you say also it hurt that they didn't have as many first-round picks? I think it was the first time they picked in the top 10 in almost a decade, if I get me wrong, or at least half a decade this past draft. And with Anderson, we talked about it when we had you on in the preseason about how he should be getting every possible chance to be that guy right behind Zibanejad, which would give Kevin Hayes a chance to be that third-line center that can be that transition center to make your team from a good team to a great team. With Gorton is concerned, the guy, I know there was a long wait with the whole Glenn Sather and everything to get him finally up to being the GM of the team. I know long term, getting a Derek Stepan no trade clause and not having to worry about being locked in with him to 2021. Let me put the GM hat on you, Russell. Would you have traded Rick Nash to Arizona instead of Derek Stepan?
Oh, would I have done that? In a heartbeat, I would have done that. Now, would I have gotten the same value back for Rick Nash? I don't think the same value per se, because they traded Antti Raanta along with Derek Stepan, so possibly. But Derek Stepan is a much more valuable piece to that organization and to ours than Rick Nash was. But if I had the opportunity to trade Rick Nash to the Coyotes, I would have done that in a split second. Yes.
Especially with that cap space that Arizona always has.
Yeah,
I think they still have Pavel Datsuk's contract also.
No, Datsuk
went off last year.
Yeah, went off after last year. Chris Pronger's went off after last year as well. I think 3 of the contracts went off after last year.
But you think you talked about Russell with Dave Bowl. We talked the same thing with the Capitals. Why didn't they call Arizona with Brooks Orpik's contract to try to get? You see these teams that are thinking ahead of the game. Even Chicago traded Chalmerson down there because they wanted someone to pair up with Ekman Larson to be more of a solidifying fate. Because Arizona still wants to win. They have a bunch of young guys too that some of us, our teams, would kill for, like a Domi. Anthony Duclair, guy was a Ranger Ranger draft pick. So
actually, I'm glad you bring up Anthony Duclair because this was another. Of course, this was a Sather trade, so I can't blame Gordon for this one. But the Anthony Duclair trade for Keith Yandel, this is my problem with that whole thing, and this falls on Gordon a little bit too. If your team has Keith Yandel, you have a pretty good offensive defenseman and a guy who can fling it from the back end, and that's all. That's good, but how come one summer you have Keith Yandel, and you don't think an offensive defenseman like that is worth it, and then the following year you think Kevin Shattenkirk's worth it, who's basically the same player, and then you basically let Keith Yandel go for nothing, but then you sign Kevin Shattenkirk to this deal. So it's things like that that make me question what's going on with Gordon a little bit. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ernie.
Yeah, and we had a lot of same questions about Brian McClellan with the offseason he had. So GMs are either hitting or missing. There's no middle ground in the NHL this year, especially what the pressure is. You see all these, you mentioned it, Russell, with Matthews, with some of these, a lot of these young kids, Line that are coming in and clicking right away. Look at what, some of these other teams. Look at New Jersey, all the young kids they got clicking with Brott and Heishier and Butcher. They're hitting on these young guys. The Rangers did the same thing the year before with Jimmy Vesey, and they hit right off the bat with Vesey, getting him away from Nashville. But you see Will Butcher doing what he's doing in New Jersey, the same formula, but more of a defenseman. Obviously Will's a defenseman, but at the same time, where's Jimmy Vesey here in year 2? It's like he completely disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I love those sophomore slumps.
It's not even just him. It's a bunch of them just seem to not know where they're supposed to be, or they don't seem to have it in them, and it's really disheartening because I as long as I've been a Ranger fan, I've never seen a team look like this. I've seen them start the season bad, but this is entirely different. It's not the team learning a new system. It's not a team getting used to a new coach. It's a team that's been with this coach for a while now, and you lose Stepan and Girardi, but you still have a pretty decent team, and you should not be 1-5-2 to open the season. Something is wrong with them. Can we exactly pinpoint what it is? We've given a lot of reasons, but I don't I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of all these factors, and I don't know if things are going to get better for a little bit here.
Maybe you need to go back to the scheduling from a couple years ago and start with most of your games on the road, because all these home games you guys have in October isn't very enthusiastic for your fan base.
I find it funny that I've worked 2 NHL games so far, and they've both been Ranger games. And the first one I worked was that home game against Montreal, which was the night after they got blown out by Toronto for the Rangers, and the Capitals blew out the Canadiens in the Caps home opener. And that was a Rangers win. And then the other night when I worked the Islanders-Rangers game, the Rangers almost won. So there's something about me working Ranger games that might be semi good luck for you guys, but not good luck at all either at the same time. But I do know that this week I'm working the Flames Blues game.
Oh, that's gonna be a good one though.
So
they're both really good.
That'll be, and I got a lot of college hockey coming up. So
yeah.
But hey, Russell, before we let you go, take a step back away from the Rangers talk. What's your feeling of the first couple weeks of the regular season? There's a lot of good stories, a lot of crazy stories, and after that, I'll ask you a specific question with a bigger hot seat right now. New York Rangers or Montreal Canadiens? But first, your general thoughts of the league through 2 weeks, and what stood out for you.
Okay, so since I started working with NHL Network, I started a few weeks ago. I've been watching a lot, and I get to see a lot of teams that I don't normally get to watch on a daily basis. So, scoring in this league has been crazy these past few weeks, and I feel like at least once a night I'm seeing a goalie just get completely undressed, or a defenseman getting completely undressed, and like the young guys have just been taking over. Austin Matthews is straight up embarrassing. He's shooting through people's legs. He's shooting like off the rush like it's nothing, like pinpoint accuracy from anywhere on the ice. Like the Leafs have just been this juggernaut, and it's been something to watch. And Patrick Marleau added that mix, so the Leafs look really dangerous. And I've been watching Tampa also. Tampa's extremely exciting to watch when Steven Stamkos healthy, and Nikita Kucherov seemingly scoring at will and no one being able to stop him at all. So they've been great to watch down there. Dallas, for some reason, they don't know how to put the puck in the net, and yet they have such offensive talent. But, I think they'll get there. They're also getting used to a new coach, and Ben Bishop's been a rock in net in Dallas. In terms of the Penguins, they've been allowing a lot of goals. I mean, I'm not one to be sad if the Penguins lose, but, it's interesting that the Stanley Cup champs seem to have some defensive deficiencies this season. And Buffalo, they just need to learn how to play defense because they have all the offensive talent. But I was working the Buffalo-Vancouver game last night at the studio, and man, their defense is just caving in. It's not good for them and their development. And around just the league it's been really entertaining. I'll give it that. It's a lot of high scoring. You don't see too many shutouts these past few weeks, and you see these young guys just really coming in the game and stepping up. I mean, Calgary has looked really good early on. Mike Smith has been extremely solid for that team, and I knew he was going to be good, but he's been really good. The Canucks aren't as bad as a lot of people thought. I mean, that's due to people like Brock Besser stepping in the lineup and really contributing. Ducks are doing fine, The storylines have been playing out.
I just like the Ducks are doing fine.
Ducks are doing well. But, hey, quick take, Russell. What do you think of that goal that was allowed last night in Vancouver, the third goal? Very controversial.
So I was watching that, and the goal you're referring to before I started, the Daniel Sedin goal, correct?
That was the one that I think it was Vertanen. That was So the argument was Phil Housley thought he was offside. I don't think he had complete possession of the puck from watching it, and that's the argument that was made to why it wasn't offside. It didn't look like he had complete control, and Phil Housley was really, really upset about it during the game and in his post-game, so I don't think it should have been allowed.
All right, well, real quick, Russell, before we let you go and go to break, we do have a little bit of announcements to make, and it involves you. As everyone knows, last week, Bernie and I, we did a thing where you could see Bernie on the WBGR Facebook Live feed, and you can only see me on the Txht Facebook Live feed. The reason we did that, and we said we would announce it this week, is because from November 17th to 19th, I will be in Morristown, New Jersey, with Russell for DerpyCon 2017. which is a convention that X75 Productions, the company that I run, is sponsoring. Now, when we do TXHT, Bernie will be here in studio, which you'll see on the WBGR feed, and I will be calling into studio. Everyone will be able to see me and Russell on the TXHT feed when I am in New Jersey for that. So that weekend, TXHT will have a Maryland, New Jersey feel to it, as we'll be in 2 different locations for the show, just like how we had you in Frederick, Maryland, for one of our preview shows, our Western Conference preview show. So, and then also, Russell, you could tell our friend Amanda, I will be on 2 panels, one of which will be with her. The Festival of Friendship, the Pro Wrestling Fan Panel, will be on the Friday, November 17th from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., which will be Amanda and I talking about pro wrestling. And then on the Sunday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I will be doing More Phenomenal, the Power Ranger Fan Panel.
Oh, all right, yeah, definitely. I think if she's listening, she knows, but yeah, I'll definitely let her know.
Well, she didn't know about the time of the panel. She knew she was on the panel. She just didn't know the time, but we do have the times now. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, DerbyCon, I will be coming to you live from the convention on TXHT. From there, you'll see me at the convention. Russell, you'll be with me, and Bernie will be here in studio. It'll be a very interesting show to do. It'll be a lot of fun too.
And one last thing, Bernie asked me who's more on the hot seat, the Canadians or the Rangers, Grass, and I honestly have to say it's probably Montreal because, man, that team, if they don't start winning some games, Bergevin is not going to be there by probably by the end of the month.
Well, when you strictly go for defense and you only get one true offensive guy, how you're going to help your scoring?
Well, crazy thing is Russell also is they aren't just they're losing, they're giving up 5-6 goals a game, so the defense is getting shredded too.
Harry Price looks awful. And, this is what happens when you trade away over the years PK Subban, Ryan McDonough, and now Mikhail Sergachev, who, by the way, scored 2 goals on Sergei Bobrovsky the other night, I believe. Or if it was Bobrovsky, it was against Columbus. I'm not sure who was in net, but Sergachev has looked fantastic. Ryan McDonough has been great for his entire career, and PK Subban's tearing it up for the Preds now. They've made a lot of mistakes, and I don't think putting Drouin at center is the right way to go about it, because Drouin is not a center. He's been a winger in his NHL career, and they're forcing a career winger to play center. They have problems in Montreal. It doesn't look like it's going to get better. I think they're definitely more on the hot seat.
It's almost like with all the rumors going around about Alex Galchenyuk, he's probably on his knees praying that he's the next one to get traded in one of these deals. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are one of the teams that are being mentioned for him. If he goes there, I would be in massive hysteria, because I think something would click there, which being behind Crosby and Malkin would definitely help his career immensely.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, with that, Russell, thank you so much, and we will be hearing from you again on November 18th.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Russell.
All right, with that, Dixon, take us to break, buddy.
Looking for some pre-Thanksgiving fun, then look no further than to DerbyCon.
All right, thanks, Russell.
No problem, guys. It was fun. I always like coming out.
I need that NHL Network job, man. Freaking, I love Weeksy and Luffman and all those guys. It seems like a blast.
It's fun. It's fun. It's just, doing the live games is really good, but I'm still getting used to the overnight hours. I think I work like 10 to 6 a.m. today, so coffee is key.
Ooh, yes, indeed.
All right, bud. We'll talk soon, okay?
Have a good one, guys. Thanks.
All right, good interview today. All right, get some sleep. Later.
Sleep? What is that?
Sleep? How's he going to get sleep when the Rangers play in 45
I
minutes?
know. Goal? Oh, shoot, Nashville, screw it.
He'll probably sleep, after the game's over.
That's like Arvidsson scored 3 minutes in? Not again. All right, we're done.
So we'll start with 3 stars. We'll go into what Ovechkin did, which was history last night. Are you braiding your beard? And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Experience Hockey Talk, Serious Hockey Talk for serious hockey fans, where we also want to thank the bands Crimson Orchard and I Shine for the music that you listen to before and during the show. Huge thanks to those guys for allowing us to use their awesome music. And Bernie, we gotta, while we're talking about last week, on Monday they announced the previous week's 3 stars of the week. One of which, for the second week in a row, was a Washington Capital. Nicholas Backstrom was named 3rd star of the week. Backstrom paced the NHL of 3 goals, 6 assists, and 9 points in 4 games with the Caps. He posted 1 goal, 2 assists, and 3 points, factoring on all 3 Washington goals in a 4-3 overtime loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning on October 9th, which was his big game. 2nd star was Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthews recorded 4 goals, including 2 in overtime, that powered the Maple Leafs to a pair of wins in 3 starts. And then the 1st star was Nikolai Ehlers, left winger of the Winnipeg Jets. Ehlers led the NHL with 5 goals, including a pair of winners to propel the Jets to 3 straight victories. So definitely a lot of good things happening in Winnipeg, not just with Patrick Laine, but also with Nikolai Ehlers as well.
Well, it's Kyle Connor now getting up into that lineup. He had a silky sweet pass to Blake Wheeler that eventually tied the game at 3 up there last night. You put him with his skill set from the collegiate ranks in with that team. They just need to keep the puck out of the net in Winnipeg, and they'll be fine. But, Nicky had another great week, including that 4-point maestro effort in New Jersey after technically being scratched for 10 minutes after he took the puck to the head. So he was definitely the best player of the ice up there in New Jersey on that Friday night. And just looking around the league in general, and we're going to talk about Ovi here in a second. A lot of injuries.
Yeah,
I got huge injuries that you'll cover in a couple
I got
minutes.
a couple notes. Yeah,
but shocking starts. Do you want to talk about history? Nikita Kucherov, we talked about in the last segment, 3rd player in the last 40 years to score in the first 7 games of the regular season. And same thing with Ovi. Mario Lemieux and Mike Bossy are on that list as well. So Kucherov, and you think the Capitals are one of the few teams that have stayed with the Lightning this year. They're off to a fast start, and the Caps should have beaten them down in Tampa. They had them down 3-1 until the 3rd period of that thing. Just the wagon started coming off the wheels coming off the wagon. So
yeah, and speaking of history, you mentioned Nikita Kucherov, 7 straight games with a goal.
Second in the league to who?
Gretzky.
This year.
Oh, this year, Ovi.
Yeah.
But Alex Ovechkin, when he scored his overtime winner last night, he passed Jaromir Jagr for first all time in overtime winners with his 20th career overtime winner.
Yep, regular season overtime's only been 20 years, 25 years now. So, but to actually pass Jagr in something is pretty impressive, because if it isn't owned by Gretzky or Gordie Howe, usually Mark Messier, Jagr's right there in that mix. So the longevity of Jaromir Jagr definitely comes to play.
And Jaromir Jagr's with the Calgary Flames, so there could be a couple more out of him.
Well, especially since he's now playing with Monahan and Gaudreau, I think now. It should be interesting next couple weeks since he's starting getting his legs.
Yeah, and I'll actually be working that game on, I believe it's Wednesday night against the Blues. So I get to see Jagr firsthand with the kids, which will be really fun to watch.
And you talk about young players in the previous segment. We definitely have to at least mention for 5 seconds Connor McDavid making Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook look like middle-of-the-road defensemen. That pass still silly.
Yeah. Now you're talking about injuries.
Yes.
We're gonna do a little bit of Golden Knights, because we're gonna do injuries, youth, and history. We got a threesome there.
Yeah.
So starting off, goalie Marc-Andre Fleury was placed on injured reserve by the Vegas Golden Knights on Sunday. Fleury sustained a concussion after taking a knee to his head from Detroit Red Wings forward Anthony Mantha during a 6-3 loss on Friday last week. He is 3-1-0 with a 2.48 goals against average and a .925 save percentage in 4 starts this season. It should be noted that Fleury had 2 concussions in 4 months in the 2015-16 season while playing for the Penguins, and that was the key reason why he lost his #1 job to Matt Murray. Also, for Jonathan Marchessault, who has 1 goal in 4 games, was also placed on injury reserve by the Golden Knights for a lower body injury. As a result, Maxime Legacy and forward Alex Tuck were recalled from Chicago of the American Hockey League. And then as I jump over to the next one, some youth. As everyone knows, the Vegas Golden Knights traded away Calvin Pickard to the Toronto Maple Leafs because on waivers they picked up Malcolm Subban from the Boston Bruins. Vegas Golden Knights goaltender Malcolm Subban was in a car with several of his teammates heading to the rink on a Sunday. He was preparing to face his former team, the Boston Bruins. There was a lot at stake. Subban was making his first start for the Golden Knights, thrust into the spotlight because of an injury to Marc-Andre Fleury. Also in the car was forward Alex Tuck, who, like Subban, was poised to make his Golden Knights debut. And it was what some would call a storybook finish for each of them. Subban, who had a mere 62 minutes of previous NHL experience, made 21 saves in defeating the Boston Bruins 3-1 at T-Mobile Arena. Tuck scored his first NHL goal at 14:38 of the second period and assisted on Vadim Shipachyov's first NHL goal 3 minutes and 8 seconds later.
Well, Vegas had a lot of roster issues because they had to send Sipachev, Tuck, and Shea Theodore down to Chicago in the AHL because of all the defensemen that George Fee had gotten in the expansion draft that he still has on one-way deals. But it's pretty ironic that they picked up Subban, then Fleury had the concussion symptoms after his last start and is now out indefinitely, and now Tuukka Rask is out indefinitely with a concussion that happened when rookie Anders Bjork collided with him in practice. And so Boston wished they had Subban, and Vegas wished they had Pickard, but hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles in the moves and maneuvers in the NHL. You have to make them at a split second. Sometimes they work out for you, sometimes they don't, but in a way it worked out for Malcolm Subban to be able to play and win his first NHL game against his former organization, the Boston Bruins. So we got 2 Subans firmly entrenched in the NHL now, with a third coming.
Yep, and then real quick, 2 history notes, one involving a rookie. We'll do the rookie first. Will Butcher of the New Jersey Devils got his 9th assist and a 5-4 win against the Tampa Bay Lightning to become the first rookie defenseman in NHL history to record at least 9 assists in his first 6 career games, and the 3rd in the 100-year history of the league to have at least 9 points in his first 6 games, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. Harry Cameron had 15 points, 9 goals, 6 assists in his first 6 games with the 1917-18 Toronto Arenas. And Phil Housley had 9 points, 2 goals, and 7 assists with the 1982-83 Buffalo Sabres. So Will Butcher, the first ever in the 100-year history of the NHL, 9 assists in his first 6 games as a defenseman. And also, the Vegas Golden Knights continue to win and make history. The expansion team improved to 5-1-0 with a 5-4 overtime victory against the Buffalo Sabres on Tuesday, becoming the first team in the NHL's modern era since 1943-44 to win 5 of its first 6 games in its inaugural season. Vegas joined the 1917-18 Montreal Canadiens as the only other franchise in the 100-year history of the league to start its first season 5-1-0. One of the victories for Montreal was a forfeit against the Montreal Wanderers as a result of a fire that burnt Westmount Arena to the ground on January 2nd, 1918.
Definitely got hot in there in that one, but just going wheel around.
We got 3 minutes left.
Jeff Carter out indefinitely, got sliced with a skate to the left leg, which led to the LA Kings signing our buddy Brooks Light to a 1-year deal with the veteran minimum. So it's good to see Brooksy back in the NHL officially with the LA Kings. But Leon Draisaitl's out with concussion. So with all Corey Snyder left the game the other night with what looked like a back injury. Louis Erickson's out 4 to 6 weeks. Adam McQuaid's out a couple months, broken fibula, breaking his shot. So with all the speed and everything going around, all the scoring that's going on, it's crazy that the Capitals are last in the league in shots on goal. And last night it was 25.7. It went up to 27.6, but still they have the worst differential in shots on goal in the league right now. But it just shows also that I think only them and I think Boston are only 2 under 30 shots a game. So there's a lot of rubber going at these goaltenders early in the season. And in a way, the slashing rules of the preseason have made it for a better offensive game, but usually the defenses start catching up around November, December time once teams start getting practices and looking ahead with the Capitals this week. You got tonight Florida Panthers in town at the Capital One Arena. And then the Western Canada road trip that they always take. 3 games in 4 nights. We'll be here before the Edmonton-Calgary duo over the next weekend, but they go to Vancouver first and to play the Canucks. But they'll have I think they will they'll get a lot of stuff straightened out, getting a couple good practices in before getting on the plane to go out to Western Canada. You got to take advantage of this practice time, especially with the youth that you have involved with the team. Verana's starting to make more strides, but you got to get more out of it. I mean, you got first points of the season last night out of Orloff, Wilson, Chason, and the first goal of the season out of Burakovsky. That needs to keep moving in the right direction. Beagle scored his first goal of the season last night too, so you need more out of them, while also that top 6 still needs to be percolating.
All right, well, if that, ladies and gentlemen, this week on the Patreon exclusive episode, we'll be joined by Dan Rice, the head writer for the National Women's Hockey League. We'll be doing our NWHL preview show exclusively on Patreon, and then we'll do our own little preview show as well here on the show next Saturday.
The big one next Saturday afternoon in New
Jersey.
You
got the doubleheader, the Riveters taking on the Boston Pride, followed by the New Jersey Devils game. And so, you got a lot going on with the NWHL. I'm really excited to have Dan Rice on the show. It'll be great to talk to him. And then in 2 weeks, on the Patreon exclusive, Ted Starkey, author of Red Rising, the book about the Washington Capitals, back in the late 2000s, I guess you can say, because we're in the 2010s and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also, as always, we like to thank Lionel Green at WBGR Radio here for providing us the platform every Saturday morning to come into your town, and for now being the only game in town when it comes to hockey in the DMV. So please keep focused on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. We're going to bring you 1 hour, fastest 60 minutes on radio right now when it comes to that frozen ice on 30 NHL arenas all across the country and in Canada. So keep locked in. It's going to get even better as the season goes on.
And don't forget, you can be part of the Patreon community by going to patreon.com/TXHT_hockey. That's the only way you're going to be able to get those exclusive content. It's the way we're going to be giving you guys an extra, at least 30 minutes to an hour of extra content every week. So, Dixon, until next time, we'll see you on the ice. Roll.
Thank you, Dixon.
Looking for serious
Good job, Dixon.
Then listen to the Experience Hockey Talk every Saturday.
Bye, everybody.
On the WB.
And Robbie, you need to get me on eventually. You can keep having Bernie, but you got to get me on at least once.